Hello, and welcome to PeppTalks with Jeanne. I'm your host, Jeanne Pepper. I started doing PeppTalks as a way to inspire you to do intentional acts of kindness and to further the goals of #BlazeItForward. Over the past 6 years, PeppTalks evolved. I now use it for interviewing people actively making a difference in this world through their volunteerism, community service, or careers. My guests are all here because they have dedicated their lives to making this world a better place. Join us as we delve into the hopes, dreams, and aspirations of these truly inspiring and hardworking people. Hi, and welcome to Pep Talks with Jeanne. I'm your host, Jeanne Pepper, and today we're doing a Season 1 wrap-up with Eli Moskowitz, my producer.
How you doing, Jeanne?
We're doing okay today.
Well, this has been an interesting new adventure for us both. I'm going to flip it on you today, and I've got some questions for you. So let's start with the big one. What did you learn from this first season?
Oh, so many things. I even had to learn how to read from a teleprompter without breathing after every word.
It is a skill set.
Yeah, there was a lot that I had to learn. I had to learn not to do ums and huhs and yeses and a lot of noise after a guest speaks, so that it cuts down on editing that we have to do. This is all like really technical stuff, which I don't know if my audience is that interested in hearing about. But yeah, there was a lot of technical stuff that we had to do, that I had to learn how to do in order to make this watchable, enjoyable.
And what did you learn from your guests?
I learned a lot of things. There were some surprises this season. I learned a lot about the people, the individuals, and I also learned a lot about humanity. There seem to be patterns among the people that do good in this world.
Yes, there are. Is there anything you found in common amongst all your guests?
I believe that every guest would tell you that they don't feel that doing good is really an option because it's what makes their lives meaningful. And to them, having a meaningful life is where it's at. That's what they care about.
You asked a lot of your guests about their spirituality. Were you surprised by any of their answers? And where's your spirituality at these days?
Well, let's start with the first question. Was I surprised by any of the answers of my guests? I believe that every guest had their own unique take on where this world is taking us, where we came from, and where we're going, and where the material world meets the spiritual world. They all seem to have, based on their life, based on their religious backgrounds, based on who they married, based on the traumas and tragedies that they've gone through, they all seem to have their own take on what this world is all about. If you look at the commonality, I would say that there are a lot of people that don't really subscribe to any real religious beliefs, but they would probably all tell you that, other than Justin Aronson, that they believe in a higher power.
And what about you?
My own spiritual beliefs are evolving, and I have struggled with them my entire life. I was raised in a secular Jewish family. I wasn't raised with Jewish community, wasn't raised with Jewish education until I was a teenager, more or less. And I didn't really find my way in the Jewish community until I was a young adult, probably. So I had to develop my own ideas about God because I wasn't presented to me when I was young. It was almost like being raised by atheists. In fact, I think when I would ask my parents about God, they gave me very scientific answers about it, which made it feel less spiritual and more a logic question, which, as we all know, there's really no logic to this reality. But as it's evolved, it's complicated for me, but probably around the time that my son passed 6.5 years ago, I struggled with my belief in God. Although I do believe in God, I was very angry with God because I could not get over the fact that God lets terrible things happen to good people. And I've struggled with that also my whole life, but I have made peace with that. And it's really a logic question for me. And when I think about how this world was fabricated and the way that everything seems to have a beginning and an end, and a corollary. And in this world, you can't have good without bad, unfortunately.
It is an unfortunate truth.
And I like having the opportunity to be good, to be able to make that choice. And this is the place where you can do that, this place, this reality.
Well, you've certainly gone out of your way to expose people to great people who are out there doing good. What, if anything, do you hope that your guests take from this first season?
Well, I hope that they come up with more guests for me to have next season. That would be really helpful because they're all so fantastic. I can only imagine what they could bring to the table. But I think that all of my guests will tell you that the takeaway from this is that they felt like they were seen and heard and recognized. Maybe not the first time in their lives because they're all really successful people who have been recognized for the things that they've done. But when you are asked to be on a podcast and somebody is asking you questions about what makes you tick, it gives you the feeling that the universe loves you and cares about you and wants to keep your story forever in the internet for the world to see and find.
Is that what's making you tick, why you wanted to do this podcast?
There's a lot of reasons. I think that this podcast creates opportunities for people to do good and to be better. And it also gives people an opportunity to be on a podcast. How many people have been on a podcast or will ever get the opportunity if they don't do their own?
True.
And it's a great experience. It really is, I think. Everyone seems to take away a very positive feeling when they leave here.
Well, I have a feeling that's your energy giving them that positive vibe because you're all about the positive vibes these days. And watching you interact with all of your guests, it's very obvious that they are drawn to your positive energy.
Well, I think I'm drawn to their positive energy.
Well, then it's just a positivity circle and everybody's doing good for each other.
Absolutely. I think positive people are magnetized to find each other.
Well, having sat through all of these interviews and listened to these amazing people, you all seem to have found each other. So there's probably some truth to that. So for all you out there, go out and find the other people who are vibing high like you are. Were there any big surprises, something that caught you off guard this season with your guests?
It happened quite a few times. And I was surprised because most of these guests are close friends of mine who I thought I knew everything about them, but even I could be surprised during an interview. Some of the things that people discussed that weren't things that were commonly known were even things as private as learning about how a parent passed away, making a decision to leave a marriage because the person was LGBTQ and they decided to live authentically. These are big issues and not things that are commonly discussed, but when people are willing to open up and share about these things, it gives us all an opportunity to experience something very human through them.
We're all looking for those stories, and it's very heartwarming that your guests, your friends, were willing to come in and share with all of your listeners their personal stories, because that's what drives people. And especially when it comes to philanthropy and doing good in this world, it's all very personal. So the personal stories that motivated them, got them started, and keep them going, those are just as important as the work they're doing sometimes, because it's what motivates them, it's what gets them out of bed in the morning, it's what drives them.
And these people are special too, because many of them are at a point in their lives where they don't have to work anymore, and they could be sitting on a cruise ship somewhere in the middle of the Mediterranean with a cocktail in their hand, but instead they choose to stay here and do something meaningful with their time. And
Because their motivation is their personal story, and that is driving them as much now as it was the day it happened.
that's right. And they still make time to do many pleasurable things, to explore the world, to spend time with their families. But I think that they are setting the bar much higher than other people do because of just who they are and what makes them tick.
Well, you interviewed some pretty amazing people this season. If you could interview anybody and ask them anything, who would it be and what?
I think I'd like to interview Lenny Kravitz. I know that seems like really out there, but he's someone that was raised in both worlds,
Both worlds?
the world of the Jewish community and the world of the Black community.
Oh.
And he has a really unique perspective on what it was like growing up in those two worlds and how he identifies. I recently read an article about him, and I really felt like I understood what he was talking about, even though I wasn't raised in two different worlds. I mean, I kind of was being raised by aliens from outer space in a Jewish community, but I kind of get it. But yeah, I think that it's really fascinating that even though you could have one parent that is 100% white and Jewish and another parent that's 100% African American, and you could grow up colorblind and not realize that your color of your skin is what everyone else will identify you as, even if you identify yourself as a Jew.
It is a challenging world we're living in right now. And it's so busy that sometimes I think people generalize just because it's too overwhelming to try and get to know every individual. The problem is then you just start grouping people together and you don't interact on a person to person basis. And with that kind of generalizations, of course, people are going to have all kinds of skewed perspectives of this world.
Well, we all come from different places and see the world in a different way.
We do. We do. And hopefully one day all those different views will come together in a positive manner so that we can all learn to respect and enjoy our differences instead of hating each other for them.
Yeah, I think that's really key is respect. You don't have to share ideology. You don't have to share belief systems, but you still should be a humanitarian.
Right.
And I think that that's been lost on this generation, perhaps.
Well, it's been a rough few years on this planet. Maybe this is the 3 steps back before we take one giant leap forward.
From your lips to God's ears.
How can people suggest new guests for you for next season?
Well, if you have someone or if you are someone that would like to be a guest on Pep Talks, I suggest going onto any of our platforms and direct messaging us. You can also go on our website, www.PeppTalksWithJeanne, and there is a spot there where you can send us a message also.
What are you planning on doing now that season 1 is over?
Well, I've got a lot going on this summer, and hopefully we'll be gearing up to do another season in the fall.
Any big changes coming for us in season 2?
Well, perhaps we'll have more interviews that are on the scene. We may be mobile. That might be fun for us to get out of the studio, but we are in our brand new studio, so I'm sure we'll be using it quite a lot.
If you could do pep talks from any location on Earth, where would you want to go?
I think I'd want to go to maybe a high school for underprivileged youth like the Samueli Academy. And I'd like to interview some of the kids and find out their stories.
Why?
Well, I think it's important for us to see and hear from people that are living in urban areas or that don't have access to the kinds of opportunities that my children had, opportunities that were very different. And it's important for us to understand that there are needs out there for these children. And perhaps when we hear about what they are, we will have volunteers that could come in and help. What guest did you enjoy hearing from the most, and why?
I'm gonna say Rick Matros. He didn't come from money. He didn't come from influence and power, and he made conscious decisions to better himself. And once he decided to pay that forward, and spends his life now doing good for others. Not everybody has the capacity that he did to make those conscious choices on their own, and lift themselves up. So that one was a very unique story for me to listen to somebody who is at the level everybody would love to get to, but didn't start out on third base, born with a silver spoon in his mouth to get there.
Rick certainly did work hard for everything that he has. And
Yeah.
he continues to work hard giving to others as well.
And honestly, every other one of your guests was amazing in some way. Some made me laugh, some made me cry, some made you cry. It was informative, and honestly, during the chaos of the last year and all of the negativity on social media, working on this, sitting off camera, listening to you and your guest talk has been like an emotional cleansing to get rid of all the negativity. And then sitting there and editing everything, going back and listening to everything a little bit slower than when it was flying through during the interview has given me an opportunity to really take in what was said instead of just ingesting it the way we all binge through content. So for anybody who hasn't gone through them more than once, I absolutely encourage you to pick one that, when you were listening to it, you're like, wow, that one really spoke to me. Listen to it again. Go on and watch them, because sometimes people's facial expressions will tell you even more than just the words they're saying.
It's true.
And, since we took the time to videotape them as well as record the audio, it's there for people if they want to watch it.
Totally true. Also, Linda Alva was a surprise, wonderful guest, only because I did not know Linda before she came to my home to have her session recorded. I'd never met Linda. We had chatted briefly through text messaging. I don't even think I'd ever heard her voice before. And she was one of the most authentic, honest, earnest people I've ever heard speak about a tragedy, a horrible tragedy, losing her son to a fentanyl overdose, but her earnest desire to help other people now and to prevent such a tragedy from happening to someone else. I just found that to be that was inspiring for me.
Unfortunately, some of the stories that your guests have began with a tragedy like your own.
Yeah.
But I am in awe of and blown away by how all of you use those tragedies as inspiration and motivation going forward to do something positive with it, instead of giving in to the despair that would clearly come with some of these events.
Well, I'm sure that there is some despair that we give into that we just can't help, but
But that's not where you spend your day, and that's not where your guests spend your days. You get up and you don't give in to the despair. You spend your day like Erin Runyon goes out and educates children.
Yes.
And parents, so that what happened to her and her daughter doesn't happen to anyone else.
Yeah, Erin is also a very inspiring woman. We've had quite a few.
You've had some amazing people on this season. You should be very proud, not only of the episodes that you were able to get done, the number of people you knew that were willing to come in and talk about all of their things, but the caliber of guests that you had, everybody brought something special to their interviews.
So true. They all are such a blessing, not just to me, but to the world. I don't even know if they understand that.
Well, it's only the end of season 1. Hopefully your fans understand it, and they'll help keep sharing it.
I hope that some of these guests will want to come back again because there was just so much more to learn. I think Rick Matros could be another 10 hours.
Yeah, we could probably spend many hours getting to know all of these guests because they all had so much to share that it seems like only an hour for each or less isn't even enough to just scratch the surface. But that's kind of the point of it, is if you were inspired by these people, go out of your way to meet them. Join their organization, see what it is that they're doing, and go be a part of it.
Yeah, why not? I
Why
mean,
not?
they're all accessible organizations. Radiant Healthcare is
Yeah.
a very accessible local organization to Orange County, but there are many others that we had here. Even Erin Runyon, the Joyful Child Foundation.
Hmm.
She needs a lot of help with that one, and that's also something that's very accessible. And you can meet Erin, which is a treat in and of itself.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. So all of these people are involved with hands-on philanthropy. They are not just writing checks.
It is incredible. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know checks are important. Big donors help because there are things that need to get done that only dollars can do.
That's right. Like support this podcast.
Exactly. But the other side of it is something that many of your guests said: showing up, lending a hand, going to, is it Orangewood to pack up boxes to send them out?
Second Harvest.
Oh, Second Harvest.
Yeah.
Donating to Orangewood like everybody did. And even if it's $5, you don't have to be a multimillionaire to give to a worthy cause. If all you can give is $5, guess what? Your $5 will help. It's not going to buy somebody a new house, but it'll go to filling some of those boxes at Second Harvest.
Well, I think that what you're alluding to is the idea that every small thing that we do adds up.
That's right.
I mean, an ant doesn't do much on its own, but with all of the other ants,
They build a whole colony.
that's right. They can create something. So you can create something too, even if you only do something very small and it's all you can do. It's enough.
Every little bit helps. Every little bit, whether it's $1 donated or an hour of your time donated to help with something.
Just be nice to people. Is that too much to ask for?
Seems like it some days, but it shouldn't.
I mean, could it be possible that instead of making sure that your opinion is known by everyone around you, could you just keep it to yourself and listen to what other people have to say sometimes? I'm not talking about you, and at least not right this moment. But I've just seen so much negative chatter on the internet, which has motivated me to create my podcast.
And honestly, again, it has been a pleasure to work on something so positive.
I mean, how could you do something other than positive? I don't even understand how people could have a podcast where all they do is talk about people negatively.
I know it's entertaining and I know people like watching it, but there's just enough negativity in this world already. We don't need to add to it, and I'm very happy to have produced such a amazing, positive, and hopefully influential podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for helping me. I don't know if the audience understands, but you gave me a significant donation of your time this year to do this for us. So that's a big thank you from me and our audience for giving us the gift of positivity. Well, that's been our first season of Pep Talks with Jeanne. I want to thank Eli Moskowitz, my producer, for joining me for this first season wrap-up.
It's been a pleasure, Jeanne.
It has been. It's been a lot of fun. We both learned a lot. And
Yes, we did.
we're going to come back even better next season.
I'm looking forward to it.
Me too. Hashtag Blaze It Forward is a campaign my family started to repair the world with kindness and to inspire you to do intentional acts of kindness. You can learn more about my son Blaze and how you can make a difference on the website www.blazebernstein.org. Thank you to all the volunteers who have helped make my philanthropic endeavors a reality. That includes my producer, Eli Moskowitz. Thank you again. All of the wonderful volunteers who were on our crew during recording sessions. And of course, a special thank you to my son, Jay Bernstein, who created the original music at the beginning and end of the podcast. And that ends our first season and our first season wrap-up special. And we'll see you next season right here at Pep Talks with Jeanne.